Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is the McJeffrey 500, the podcast where I count down my 500 favorite movies and make my friends watch them, one film at a time. I am Jeff. It is Tuesday, January 6th, and we are recording in my co-host's lovely abode. His name is Scott. Scott, say hello.
Hello.
How are we this evening?
We're doing well. I'm a little phlegmy.
Flemmy, that's okay. Microphone will catch all of it.
In art history, we learned about the Flemish masters, and I was like, where would they be from? Flemland?
One would hope, or one would assume.
And then it made even less sense when they mentioned Flanders, and it wasn't Ned. No. Does the term Fleming, I assume, Flem, as we speak of it, with the PH. With the PH. And a G.
Now, the Fleming, as the town you specified, I believe, is of the classical FLM persuasion?
FLEM?
EM. Flemish.
Like Ian Fleming?
Relation? Did he come from Fleming? No? I hate to put you on the spot like that.
Ian Fleming, why do I know that name?
Ian Fleming is the man who created Bond, James Bond.
That's what I thought it was. Yeah. But then I started thinking about Sherlock Holmes, and that's Arthur Conan Doyle.
That is Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
I'm sorry.
Actually, I think Sir Ian Fleming, I believe he's also a Sir now I think about it. Mm-hmm. Possibly. You think when he was a kid, when he was little young Ian Fleming, and people made fun of his last name? Hey, I don't know what kind of witty turns of the phrase they would use, but
what timeless British last name would be more common than Fleming?
Oh, Gaylord. Who knows? I just, when you get stuck with the last name that can be construed to be something other than the name you were essentially given, it's like you have to wear it like a Scarlet A. It's like you wore the Scarlet Phlegm, and I don't know where this conversation's going.
All I'm thinking of is remembering the first time I read Nathaniel Hawthorne when I was a junior in high school.
I think I read it around the same time.
And I remember when we would, deconstruct one of his sentences, and a Nathaniel Hawthorne sentence was 3 American teenage paragraphs.
It was very verbose. I remember when I was in high school, and we also read the Scarlet Letter. Bless you.
That may happen once or twice.
How are you feeling?
I'm mostly doing well.
You're just a little phlegmy.
Yes, a little Flemish.
With a little sneezy.
Yes.
Kind of dopey.
Yes, the 7 deadly sins.
I wish I was Doc. But I'm happy. Not grumpy. A little sleepy. Did I cover them all? No one's bashful. No one's bashful. Who's bashful? No one here. Anyway, what I was getting at with the whole game back to Scarlet Letter, because I know people are riveted to hear how this ties into my high school education. I read it also junior in high school, Roseville, Oakmont High, go Vikings. At the same time we were reading that, the Demi Moore movie came out.
Yeah.
And I saw it before finishing the book, and
you didn't try writing an essay based on.
No, because I would have gotten an F.
Yeah, I remember that it was out on VHS at the time when we were reading it, and our teacher explicitly told us not to watch it. And admonished us that if we tried using it to base any of our classwork on, we would be sorely disappointed with what our grades would be.
I was actually surprised by the sultriness of it.
Did you say sultriness?
The sultriness.
Oh, sultrain.
Sultrainness.
Sultrain.
That would have been a whole different movie.
Don Cornelius.
Don Cornelius presents the Scarlet Letter. It's sultriness. Oh, God.
Listen, all Hester Prynne was looking for was a little peace, love, and soul!
I would have saw that movie.
Don Cornelius presents the Scarlet Letter.
In fact, I would see any movie that started with Don Cornelius presents. I'd see, Don Cornelius presents War and Peace. Don Cornelius presents, Mein Kampf. That would have been a good one.
I did make the mistake of renting I'm sure it was hawked on late night TV, like one of those Best of Soul Train collections. And on one hand, like they would show a complete episode, but it also included every commercial for Afro Sheen, Ultra Sheen, and Ultra Sheen Cosmetics.
What?
So
wait a second, you bought this?
No, I didn't buy it. I got it through the Netflix as a disc.
I see.
And I'm happy that I didn't buy it, because by about like the third episode, you've watched 9 to 12 of the exact same Afro Sheen and Ultra Sheen commercial.
Oh, no doubt.
The first time that you see them, you're like, "Oh, this is fantastic! It's so cheeky. I'm so happy to
this is
get
delightful.
you get this little bite of history."
Mm-hmm.
And then after about the 15th or 20th of the exact same commercial, you just say to yourself, "I'm done.
The thrill is gone. Thrill is gone away." I always Soul Train was usually a staple on Saturday
morning.
Saturday, like 3 a.m. Or it's either 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. Like you're out Saturday night, you come home, you had a good night if you're up late enough to watch Soul Train.
When I was growing up in the Bay Area, Soul Train would come on immediately before or immediately after immediately before professional wrestling. So it would be a Saturday morning. It would be, Saturdays wrestling would come on at 11. So 10 o'clock you put it on channel. God, I'm trying to remember what channel wrestling came on.
It's okay.
Wrestling. Superstars of Wrestling came on channel 2.
Yeah, Superstars of Wrestling was on when I was actually home on a Saturday night. That was always on at around 11 o'clock. It was actually, I remember because it was like the block of shows, because they had the show called Monsters. That used to be on first. Then Freddy's Nightmares, which actually replaced Friday the 13th, the series. Then Superstars of Wrestling. Then Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. By the time, I always went to bed before I watched even a single match of Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, bless you. But then one day, they moved it to Sunday mornings. And I was fine with it, whatever. But then one day, they replaced Superstars of Wrestling with Bill Nye the Science Guy.
That's really disappointing.
And I'm sure Bill Nye the Science Guy is a great show, very educational, funny, whatever. But to this day, I have a grudge.
You bear a little bit of resentment that you traded half-naked men slugging and pounding on each other for science.
Yes,
that's a poor trade-off.
At the time, I believed it was. At
least for someone aged 10 to 18.
I was probably about 12, 13 when the Bill Nye entered my life.
When I was growing up, it was 10 o'clock with Soul Train.
Yes.
And then, you get your Peace, Love, and Soul from Don Cornelius. It'd be right into Superstars of Wrestling at 11 a.m. And then at noon, Magnum P.I. would come on.
Ooh.
And Magnum P.I. was one of those shows for me that I would watch the intro because it was a great theme song with a bump, 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 bump.
Yeah, it was.
And, there's TC and the Chopper. But I don't think I've ever paid attention to more than maybe one episode of Magnum P.I. in my life.
I don't imagine I ever actually sat through a single episode of Magnum P.I. I always thought, cool Hawaiian shirt, cool mustache, he had a little buddy.
Yeah. And he was wearing a Detroit Tigers cap, and like, oh, okay, I like baseball.
Yeah, okay, he's relatable.
He's
probably in... was it based in Hawaii?
I would like to think so.
Okay, well, the shirt was. Anyway, there's that whole genre of shows like that. Simon and Simon, Fall Guy, T.J. Hooker. Hunter, the Equalizer.
Did we say the Fall Guy?
I did say the Fall Guy. Jeez. Yeah, so I'm sorry about if you hear the squeaking, that's me banging the...
We have it on a TV tray. We have a high class setup.
It's very
Hopefully
classy.
It won't ruin the illusion.
All right. Well, we just did actually by saying all that stuff. All right.
Number 499.
499. There's only 498 movies I like more than this one. That does not sound like the
That's not a ringing endorsement.
That doesn't sound like it, but I hold it in high regard, because it's like when you're in the line for something and you look at all the people in front of me, and then you look at all the people behind you, and it's so much more. It's like, yeah, you know what? I'm not bad. I'm pretty good. All right. Released in 2004. So we got a little bit more of a recent one here. This collection of 11 comic stories, don't get your hopes up, it's not about comic books, set in Dublin, stems from one single circumstance. How the breakup of one's couple's relationship can have unexpected repercussions on the lives of the people around them. One of those people is Leaf, a thief trying to set his life straight by pulling off one last heist before retiring. Too bad dogged detective John Lynch will stop at nothing to bring Leaf to justice. Any idea what we're about to watch?
The names are ringing a bell. I'm guessing it's not Angela's Ashes.
It's not Angela's Ashes. It's a little bit more upbeat than that one. Just a little. We will be watching Intermission. Oh, yeah, no, yeah, yay!
I'm not familiar.
Well, you're about to get familiar, and we will be right back after this intermission.
Oh no!
Woo.
Can I talk to you for a sec?
Go on.
Looking for love. It's frightening.
I mean, what else is there?
Exactly.
What about love?
Well, love's not something you can plan for, is it? You just never know what's gonna happen.
Stop him! What do I want you to do?
Stay out of trouble.
That's cold.
I'm watching you.
He dumps me, Ma. Breaks my heart. I saw him kissing some baldy fella.
Kissing a baldy fella? You don't just hook up with the next fella walks by. When you join us over here, we got some business.
A proposition.
So we hold the girl for an hostage, disguise her identity.
I got them in the joke shop so we can drive the bloke to the bank.
What vengeance, man? It's not about the money.
It's too big, and I wouldn't recommend you get involved either.
Hell yeah. Is that all you got?
IFC Films presents
This is a list of things that I want to be with you.
a story about doing whatever it takes
You and me, hand to hand.
To marry you.
and doing the right thing.
Get rid of that old Ronnie you're cultivating.
Have I got a moustache like?
You're no Tom Selleck, but
Even when you don't know what you're doing.
To know that you feel the same.
How hard was that?
Hard enough.
The law won. I fought the Lord and the law won. I fought the Lord and the law won.
Step on the bumper so I can climb back. Good lad.
We have returned. We have finished the movie Intermission.
It's like I went to a whole entire different country.
In fact, some would call that country Ireland. Dublin, the city of. Before we...
City that never sleeps.
The city which is not rolling hills of green like I imagined it to be. Like, I think I've seen other movies that present... Maybe they don't present Dublin. Maybe I'm thinking of Dover. Maybe I'm not even thinking of Ireland. Maybe it's Scotland I'm thinking of.
I'm sure that there are a lot of movies and TV shows that, they try to give you the image that New York is just, you come in, Statue of Liberty, Brooklyn Bridge, Empire State Building, and then it's Broadway and Times Square. And
Yes.
And pretty much you can get there in about 3 to 5 minutes.
Absolutely. And everyone knows if, the crime, that's Brooklyn. That's a whole different thing altogether. Has nothing to do with New York proper. All right, before we start, the movie Intermission, which we will get into, the snack we are presenting today, which is based on what we saw in the movie, is we are drinking coffee.
It's a mixed drink, really.
It's going to be a mixed drink. In the movie, they enjoy their coffee with brown sauce. Now, brown sauce is a English... I guess it's their version of a barbecue sauce. It's more vinegary. It has the molasses and the tomatoes.
I think it's intended to complement fish as well as potatoes.
And now coffee.
So
basically, the character pours brown sauce in their coffee, stirs it up, and apparently it's delish. We're about to do that right now.
There's a reason for it.
Okay.
Should you watch the movie yourself, this will make infinitely more sense.
Okay, I'm gonna go first. My God. All right, I got my spoon. I got my brown sauce. How much brown sauce did I put in this?
It was liberal.
It was pretty liberal.
I would say at least like a tablespoon.
All right, what I'm gonna do right now, I'll put a little bit more than that. I'm gonna taste the coffee as is, so I have.
You haven't tasted it up until this point.
All right, no, I've just been smelling it.
I very seldomly drink coffee, and my wife was so kind as to let us use her Keurig.
Oh, it was very very nice of her.
And because I don't drink coffee very often, I'm surprised that this didn't scald my mouth as soon as I, laid lip to it.
Mine's been sitting a little longer, so it helps. I never drink my coffee straight black like I just did, so if anything, the brown sauce is going to add a little pizzazz to it, I'm pretty sure. Good Lord, here we go.
I almost exclusively drink coffee with fried chicken,
okay.
So...
That is strange.
Eh?
To each their own, but
we love what we love.
Okay, here we go. I wonder if the mic's gonna be able to catch the squeezing sound. Here we go. Oh yeah,
I would say that's probably sufficient.
That's a good amount. Okay, it's not okay. I totally got some brown sauce on my notes.
I think that was more than liberal.
Okay. Stirring that up. All right. Hold on. Let me make sure I get a picture of this act here.
I'm giving it a shake.
All right, yeah.
I'm having it in my Iron Maiden coffee mug in honor of the United Kingdom. Which Ireland, of course, is not a part of its own country, right?
Yeah.
Independence.
So I hear.
It's like the Quebec of the British Isles.
Okay.
Do you think that's enough?
I
have a smaller mug than you. So
okay,
we'll
you know what? Yours is fine. Here, stir that bad boy up. Oh God. This is gonna be interesting.
Now, I'm wondering if this is gonna be an experience like when you have like sugar in the raw, that regardless of how hot it is, like the boiling point of sugar in the raw does not exist. So hopefully the coffee will.
Oh, it smells like coffee and brown sauce. Okay.
It does, but it doesn't smell unpleasant.
All right. Cheers.
To your health.
All right. Oh.
I'm not disappointed.
Okay.
You probably have a lot more than me, though.
Okay. That's interesting.
And maybe it was that you went with the darker blend.
I went with the house blend.
I went with a half calf, so maybe not having all the extra caffeine.
God. Yeah.
I'm getting more of the flavor of the coffee complementing.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm not disappointed. I'm going to be enjoying this as we go on.
It's not the worst thing I've ever put in my mouth. Don't quote me on that. But it was...
Hey-o.
Oh, hey-o. All right. Woo. That's it's coffee with brown sauce.
I'm surprised. It's one of those things that, like, the first time I watched Weird Al's movie... UHF, I think all of us who enjoyed UHF, when we saw him putting together a Twinkie Wiener sandwich...
How could that work?
We were hoping that we, too, would someday get to realize, something so special.
Indeed.
And now that Hostess has made the most delicious comeback in the history of ever...
Yeah.
You look like you're gonna pass out.
I'm keeping the vomit in. No, it's not that dramatic. I'm not looking forward to drinking this.
I'm sure.
You get the brown sauce comes, like, the smell is strong, and the tang hits the tip of the tongue, but it's mostly coffee. But then it kind of hits in the back of the throat. It's interesting.
Maybe you didn't stir enough.
Maybe. Well, I mean, the damage has been done at this point.
I mean, really, the problem is you have tomatoes, malt vinegar, and molasses. Maybe maybe my palate is so refined or so, unevolved that all I'm tasting is the molasses, and I've just lost the vinegar.
Oh, I envy you. Because I'm totally down putting molasses.
Like here, try it.
You want me to try yours?
Yeah, try mine.
Okay.
And let me know what you think.
Yeah, yours is less harsh.
maybe I was a little less liberal.
It's there. I definitely taste it, but it's. I think maybe I should have gotten a more accommodating coffee instead of just going straight black.
Well,
live and learn.
I'm. This may be my thing now, for all I know.
Well, you get to keep the
me and Bono from U2, Russell Crowe, who was in the movie.
Now it's Colin Farrell.
Oh God.
Yes, Australian. No, he's a New Zealander.
New Zealander.
And Colin's an Irishman. He's an Irishman.
Irishman, Colin Farrell, New Zealander, Russell Crowe.
Indeed.
I was thinking it was funny because at the end of the movie, there's a rendition of the Clash's "I Fought the Law,"
which is actually not the Clash. The Clash was also did the cover from somebody else.
Did they?
Yeah, I'll look it up right now. But
I'm sure you're right.
No, I looked it up earlier. Well, you know what? Just take my word on that. The Clash covered it from somebody else. It's actually a much older song. The Clash version's the one we all know and love.
But I was mistaken when I heard that it wasn't the Clash doing it, and that it was someone else. At first when he said it was Colin Farrell singing, I was like, oh, 30-odd foot of... And I started thinking about Russell Crowe, which is why the confusion happened.
They're foreign guys who are known to be kind of bad boys. They both have that... I actually believe, Colin Farrell, outside of that song, actually does fancy himself to be a musician in his own right, so they have that in common as well.
Has he been on Broadway?
Not yet.
Has he been on
I'm
Broadway,
sure it's
Sacramento?
Possibly.
Who was the one who was in The Ugly Truth?
I don't. Couldn't recall.
It's gonna bother me now.
Just taking another drink of coffee might come back to you.
Man. This is why phones exist.
All right. Well, while you're looking that up, let me kind of get into a description of the film we just watched. So basically what we have is a movie with multiple vignettes that kind of revolve around a breakup of two of the primary characters. Forgive me for not taking the characters' names down, but we're going to say Cillian Murphy breaks up with Kelly MacDonald.
John breaks up with Deidre.
There we go. All right.
Gerard Butler.
Gerard Butler.
300.
Yeah. God, he's
Gamer.
He's been in a lot of terrible movies.
Was he in Doom?
No, that was The Rock.
Okay. It's all the same movie to me.
Basically. All bad. My screen disappeared. Hold on. Alright, so, basically, there are multiple vignettes. Revolves around, maybe not directly revolves around this breakup, but basically all the characters involved are directly or indirectly affected by said breakup. And so basically, I'm going to say basically about 5 more times. Basically. Now I'm going to, for sure. I mean, we just get into the story arcs. You got Colin Farrell. He's a villain. He establishes...
A street tough.
He is a toughie. There's a cop that's on his tail, played by Cole Meany, who aspires to be a television cop. He fancies himself as kind of an action.
He imagines himself to be like a Dirty Harry. Yeah. He reminded me so much. Cole Meany reminded me so much of Gene Hackman's Popeye Doyle from one of my very favorite movies, The French Connection.
Did you see The French Connection 2?
I own it. I have not watched it yet, but I did watch the first movie in the theater. Because I intended to go see Star Trek Into Darkness, and I went to the wrong theater, but they ended up showing French Connection that night.
That's so random.
So I ended up seeing French Connection instead.
Did you ever get around to see the Star Trek in Darkness?
Like 2 days later.
So this was like last year?
Yeah.
Or no, 2 years ago.
2 years ago?
Wow.
2 days later, after I went to go see French Connection, one of the theaters out in Roseville, a suburb of Sacramento, ended up showing a double feature of Into Darkness with World War Z.
Ooh.
So I just watched them both.
That's a double dose.
By myself.
You know what the first movie I saw by myself was? The Cindy Crawford Baldwin Vehicle Fair Game.
A remake, of course, of...
Is it a remake of anything? Well, please enlighten me.
Is Fair Game the one that's a remake of Cobra?
No. But Cobra Stallone?
Yeah.
No. But Cobra is craptastic. I love Cobra.
There's a movie that had...
That's a second straight Cobra reference in a podcast, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to keep that up. So, alright. So, we should get back to the movie, maybe. Alright, so basically, you got these stories. They're vignettes, if you will. It's, unlike movies that are episodic, they have standalone stories, which I spoke of my, I don't even know if I talked about that on the podcast. Basically, yeah, because I was talking about the Coen brothers, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? It's too episodic, these standalone stories. These are stories that at first seem to stand alone, but all join to the bigger whole, which is the relationship. Why I like the movie, ultimately, is because... First of all, I don't think there's really usually with movies like these with a bunch of vignettes, there's usually a weak link story. I think of something like Love Actually, a movie I actually really like,
but there are things that
some stories are definitely stronger than others. Like the story with the porn stars did not work for me in Love Actually, but the stories that are great were really great. Anything
with Bill Nighy, for example, is going to carry its own weight.
Yeah, could be a movie into itself. This didn't. All the storylines were fine because they didn't overstay their welcome, and
it was very balanced.
Balanced.
It ended up really kind of rewarding you for sticking with it and making the investment in the characters that are on the screen.
Indeed, and I would best describe this movie. It's like Pulp Fiction and Love Actually had a baby, where it's basically kind of got the heart of Love Actually with the kind of the saucy meanness of Pulp Fiction. It's essentially a very dark comedy, but there's a sweetness to this dark chocolate, if you will. And it makes me happy, even though you kind of know where it's going. Some of the resolutions...
There was definitely a lot to identify with.
Oh, of course.
I think, one of the great elements of the story is that there's a kind of a mother-daughter story in there, with...
Shirley Henderson.
She
played Sally. I remember
Sally,
that.
A young woman with she's a little hirsute.
Yes.
Mostly on the upper lip.
Yeah, Sally was in love with a man who essentially stole her money, said she was lousy in a sack, and then, with her tied to the bed, apparently took a poo on her. So she kind of is over men, and she kind of lets herself go, and grows the,
just lets herself go.
The Roger.
Yeah. She... It's funny, she had almost like a bad teenage mustache kind of coming in, which reminded me of a young man who I used to walk home from school with in high school.
You sure it was a man?
Oh yeah, for sure. He had almost the exact same hairstyle though.
Oh, lovely.
Which is, maybe that was one of those things that resonated with me, is that he looked a lot like Matt Garviel, who had a lovely sister who did not have a mustache.
No.
But it took me, those moments took me back, and I think, seeing the moments between Sally and her mother where, it seems to start out that they're going to be butting heads, that, her mother just wants her to make an investment in herself.
Yeah.
Just wants her to,
Yeah, there's no conflict between, which is kind of refreshing, honestly.
Because it would have been so easy to go the route of,
you're smothering me, why don't you let me live my life?
Yeah. You're wrong, you don't understand me. There's no yelling. No. There's no... And I think there's a there's a certain quietness about this movie that there really wasn't one of those moments that's screaming in your face, just, hey, look at me! Look at me!
Maybe the opening scene.
Yeah, that was...
Because, I mean...
But I mean, even that was... The movie catches you off guard. It lulls you into a sense of...
You think you know where it's going.
And it just hits you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, literally. And figuratively. I mean, I really like the opening scene, because I do believe it does set a tone where you don't know, which way's up. Ultimately, what happens is Colin Farrell is talking to this waitress, smooth talking her, talking about chemistry and how he could be, her soulmate. But as soon as the last customer leaves the cafe, basically, wastes no time to punch her directly in the face and steal the money out of the register. So you go like, okay, this is what's gonna happen here. And Colin Farrell's kind of a cock in this movie, and he's in a movie where there's various degrees of cockdom. He's probably the biggest cock of them all. He plays the role well. I'm actually a decent sized Colin Farrell fan. Colin Farrell the person, I give two shits about.
We're probably never going to meet him, so
don't say never.
Well, I mean, I didn't think that we'd end up in the same room as Neil Blomkamp, and
ta-da!
And that happened in Roseville. So,
well,
I guess never say never.
Never, ever say never. It could happen. I bet he's very salt of the earth type of dude. He probably would, have a pint with you. I would like to think that.
I'd like to think that he would maybe, if you were stranded on the side of the road, maybe he'd help you change a tire,
or at least show you how,
or help you get the spare out of the boot.
Yes, and he'd be cheering you on. I'm like, that's right, boyo. I am actually an Irish Scot, and I can't even.
And I'm just named Scott. So.
See what you did there. I do have one issue with the movie, and that is actually with the main relationship between John and Deidre. I actually think Deidre at the end of the day loves John, even though John is a petty crook, can't seem to keep a job, basically a loser. But she has a terrible picker, obviously, because then she ends up with a married man afterwards.
Who seems not at all invested in what she wants or desires either.
Not at all. I think he's... first you think it's a midlife crisis, and all the characters we're speaking on have relatively big roles in the movie. So the woman he was married to for 14 years, she has a side story of her own, and we find out that this woman is actually you feel bad for her right from the get-go, because this guy's basically leaving her for this younger woman, and then you get to know her a little bit, and I'm trying to pinpoint whether she's just been a ticking time bomb this whole time, or she's always been just a violent woman, because throughout the whole movie, she is absolutely brutal. She's like yelling at people in classrooms, she's throwing her best friend on the ground, she's having sex with
rough sex with a man half her age,
who happens to be John, Cillian Murphy's best friend, his mate, if you will. And, they have sex, and she essentially punches him in the jaw, and
really punctuating their relationship with one another.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if the husband was escaping an abusive relationship, or she was just holding all this stuff in, and then he left, and now it's just rage.
I got more the impression that that part of the reason that their relationship ceased to work is because she was bottled in. She didn't articulate herself. And I think that was the interesting thing about the movie, is that you brought up a good point, that essentially each one of the main characters is in their own midlife crisis. You have John's friend, who
or quarter life crisis, if you will.
Midlife, quarter life, some point of
some crises,
some sort of crossroads in their life. Indeed. one of John's friends loses his job.
Mm-hmm.
He has to figure out what he's going to do from there. One of his friends, his best friend can't find himself into a relationship.
Yeah.
You have the mom of Sally, who's lost her husband and has 2 daughters and doesn't know where to go, or she knows where to go. She's actually one of the people who has some lucidity about what she really wants in her life.
Yeah, she seems to have it most together, even though if you actually take a good look, she's probably the one who's lost the most. Mm-hmm. She lost her husband she loved, and everyone else is just freaking out, and she's totally calm in comparison to everybody else. I mean, she takes an egg to that. She takes an egg to the head at one point, and seems to be
really just says, "Okay, well, I'll just roll with it."
This life. Speaking of which, there's a little kid in this movie.
There is.
He kind of is like the
he's like the red balloon of the movie.
He kind of,
which is funny because he's wearing a red sweatshirt throughout it.
Yeah, this is a kid who basically enjoys throwing rocks at cars, eggs at people, and doing river dances.
He's the
for the telly.
He's the proverbial gremlin from your Twilight Zone episode or Looney Tunes episode, depending on what you're watching.
I think that he ultimately serves a purpose, though, because without his actions, a lot of the stories don't move forward. Because I was thinking about it, actually. Just rewind real quick. He throws a rock that hits a, what do you call those buses?
A double-decker.
Double-decker bus. Hits the windshield, it completely falls on its side.
It was a pretty spectacular moment.
It's a pretty big
up
stunt.
There with any car flip from an episode of the A-Team, which I've been watching a lot of, so I'm sorry for bringing that up.
No, that's fine.
And or Die Hard.
How do you like your coffee, Scott?
In a cup.
Fool. Nice. That's a classic. So anyways, Sally and her mom help the people in the bus, and then TV reporters catch the story. And essentially, they didn't want Sally in it because she has that mustache, but then the kid throws the egg at the mom, so then they have to use Sally.
Like, let's roll with it.
And then Sally sees her mustache on TV and finally wakes up.
Has her epiphany.
So, if the kid never threw the egg, or never threw the rock at the bus, Sally would never, or maybe she would have gone on, but her eyes would not be.
In theory, she may have looked at a mirror, but she probably wasn't going to notice it. I think, it's another good point that you made. Like, I know I should be disagreeing with you, but
no, please agree.
Because conflict is where the good,
No, trust me, those other assholes that are co-hosts, they will disagree plenty. Fucking Paul.
It's really true though that so many things aren't going to happen to the characters without that one element just kind of shifting into place.
That rogue element. So basically, what we got here? All right, I wanted to speak real quick on the whole Pulp Fiction. Obviously, an influential movie. I'm sorry I keep going back to it, but I realize that the movies like this don't exist if Pulp Fiction didn't exist. I believe I started making a list. I made a list of the movies that begot Pulp Fiction, maybe directly or indirectly, where maybe these stories did exist prior to Pulp Fiction, but without Pulp Fiction, a studio probably would have hey, that's a Pulp Fiction type movie. We should make that movie. So I started, and I realized I have a soft spot for vignette films. I was thinking
I think it was the logical evolution of the anthology as far as cinema went, because aside from, up until that point, if you wanted an anthology type story or a vignette type story, it was going to be like a Woody Allen type movie,
sure, which had its time and place, but
and to a certain extent, he'll still trot it out every now and then, or
once in a while he gets it right.
That's probably more along the lines of like New Year's Eve or Love Actually to a certain extent, where it's more, it's more around a theme instead of being a true, intermingling of stories.
Indeed. So I was looking at, a lot of movies that will end up on this list probably wouldn't exist without Pulp Fiction coming before it. I mean, like something like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, or Go, or Bound, or Run Lola Run, or Morris Perros. I will also blame him for Boondock Saints. They all can't be winners. Sorry, I went there.
I didn't hate Boondock Saints.
I
thought I was going to be really dubious of it coming into it because it's one of those movies that has such a rabid fan base, much like Pulp Fiction. And that was the thing, is that with Pulp Fiction, it was put on this impossible plateau for me.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of Tarantino movies have been.
Yes.
That, you can't really climb upon that mountain and, see it as they see it. If it's just been built up as, like, this is the most important thing that you're ever going to see in your life. I saw Pulp Fiction on Laserdisc at my friend Micah's house.
Nice.
When I was a freshman in high school, or an 8th grader, I think.
The first time I saw it was actually also not in theaters. It was actually at a friend of a friend's house who had a award screener.
Oh yeah.
And I felt special because it was still in theaters, and I was like watching it on this dude's television, and I was like, yeah. But
for me, it was just I was so focused on, and I think like with later Tarantino movies like Kill Bill, I was so focused on the process of how he made the movie, that even at that young age when I didn't really understand all of that, when I wasn't looking for it, it was hard to get caught up in the story for me because I was so distracted by the fact of this is important, I need to be paying attention. I couldn't just enjoy the movie, and I think that's been a problem for me with many of Tarantino's movies.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there. I mean,
that said, there have been Tarantino movies I've really enjoyed since then. I feel like Django Unchained is the closest I'll probably get in my lifetime to seeing a movie come close to remaking Blazing Saddles.
Yeah, I've never considered that, but maybe.
I mean, at least getting away with a lot of the incorrectness and going with a lot of the gallows humor of it.
Yeah, and he's one of the few directors that, certainly white directors, who could probably pull that off. Yeah, even though like there's certain...
it's one of those things like how could a movie get away with showing blackface, nowadays? Because for the most part, you can't.
No, I mean, even when Spike Lee did Bamboozled, I still couldn't help but feel very uncomfortable watching it.
It's a fun, like the closest that you came to it was Tropic Thunder.
Yeah, and I was fine with it. But at the same time, there's that little tinge of...
You had to have a logical explanation for it. Yeah. And if you hadn't had an actor as gifted as Robert Downey Jr.
And the fact is, the character is basically ridiculed by the actual black cast member through the whole movie. So like, it kind of like, softens the blow. I always... my reference always is a movie I really like called Yankee Doodle Dandy with James Cagney. Love that movie, except there's one scene with just, because he's a Broadway dancer, and he kind of does a blackface scene, like, early in, that totally, like, takes you right out of the movie. And it's very inconsequential, but you don't forget it. You just can't forget it. And I don't know why. Okay, so how we went from Intermission to blackface.
Well, we started talking about Tarantino.
Tarantino. Look what you begot. Let me tell you a little bit. Alright, this movie came out in March 2004. Other major releases that month were the Dawn of the Dead remake, a Zack Snyder film. Which I actually enjoy.
I think besides the original Night of the Living Dead, I think that's the only of the Dead movie that I've seen. That one. Okay, well, the 70s Dawn of the Dead is the classic, and I've seen Return of the Living Dead by now.
Return of the Living Dead is solid stuff.
But that's not a George Romero, right?
No, it's something. It's a different beast altogether, but it's still fun.
Zack Snyder's movies, probably among the more enjoyable.
Indeed, I'm not. I mean, how do you feel? How do you feel about Watchmen?
It got better with subsequent viewings.
Okay.
The first time I watched it, and maybe it was just the theater that I saw it at, everything was played so loud, like this... Excuse me.
No worries.
everything from the soundtrack to the sound effects, it was just the volume. And the volume of everything on the screen was blasted just right at you, that it made it really hard to enjoy. When I saw it in a bigger theater that had a more balanced sound system, maybe a better print of the movie, not a print, but, you know, a better copy of the movie, it seemed like it worked a lot better. I was able to slow the movie down in my head. I was able not to get caught up with, you know, shoving, you know, a Bob Dylan version of All Along the Watchtower, you know.
Which is, he's the originator, so. Yeah. Technically, Jimi Hendrix does the Bob Dylan version. Yeah. Just saying.
I'm just saying.
So.
It was one of those moments that you're watching a movie, it's like, oh, look how clever we are. We're putting all these songs you love in here. Like, look, I'm doing Sucker Punch, and we've redone Kashmir, you know.
Yeah.
It's...
I did not see Sucker Punch.
I saw it in quote-unquote IMAX.
Yeah. For maximum effect.
It was okay.
It was fun to look at,
I really liked Sucker Punch for the fact that it brought comic artist Alex Pardee designs to the screen,
and that's what
and that was really cool for me, because he has, you know, kind of become a part of the Northern California art community in a huge way over the last few decades, and seeing, you know, the guy who was drawing, you know, ridiculous bunny cartoons have a whole world in a movie designed around his vision was really exciting for me. Like, I have a bunch of his t-shirts, have a bunch of his, like, self-published comics that he did.
Right. So you kind of had a personal stake in all this.
Yeah, so and that was the thing. I was less excited about the story and Zack Snyder and what he was doing. I was just there so much to just see what was going to come out of Alex Pardee's brain on the screen. So,
and as far as what I could tell, it was very stimulating.
It's
a movie that I probably could watch on mute, and I'd probably enjoy it just as much.
It's just one of those things. It's, to a certain degree, it's a little bit of softcore. Like,
then you definitely got my attention. I'm all about softcore. That'll be a podcast for another time. Also, that month we had Kevin Smith's first foray out of the View Askew universe with Jersey Girl. We have the Coen Brothers movie Lady Killers, Hellboy.
Oh, you were saying in the last podcast that you didn't enjoy Lady Killers.
I did not.
That was the movie that brought me back to Tom Hanks.
Really?
Yeah.
Was he missing in your life?
He pretty much...
You're the guy who hasn't seen Forrest Gump.
I've never seen Forrest Gump. I checked out with Tom Hanks around Big.
Right when he was getting quote-unquote big.
Yes.
So like, I was...
Pretty much like the last Tom Hanks movie I liked was... Did Punchline come before or after Volunteers?
It was after, but I think Punchline came right after Big, didn't it? I think there was like...
I think they were probably filmed around the same time.
Yeah, so there's like Big, and there was Punchline, and then... What was the League of Their Own?
Joe versus the Volcano.
I like Joe versus the Volcano.
I still haven't seen it. So
that is a wholly original movie. It doesn't completely work, but you gotta... love the concept.
Just Tom Hanks became, you know, this guy that was just like, hey, look, he's got curly hair, and I really have an issue with grown men with curly hair.
I did not realize this. But you're all for you give you the money pit, give you the man with one red shoe, give yourself some splash. That's your Tom Hanks. That's Tom Hanks. You know. He still had curly hair, dude.
I know.
He still had curly hair.
It was just. I think he was so young and raw early on that it was. He just became like the thing that the entire movie industry was putting all their eggs in the basket of. And for me, it was just a turnoff. It's the reason why people, you know, will root against the New York Yankees. He's just so good that, and maybe it's not that he's really that good, but he's just put on this pedestal that you're like, really? It's the guy with curly hair. Like, is he that great?
I mean, look at his hair. But then Lady Killers brought you back.
But Lady Killers was such a step in a different direction. It was You know, it
Difference
was
to
so
good work.
over the top. I know it was a remake. I'm sure it was, a pale imitation of the original.
I didn't see the original with
But-
Alec Guinness.
But, when you have Tom Hanks saying sackpot in just this melodramatic, it was so over the top and so enjoyable. I like slapstick. I like,
Oh, I do too.
and having J.K. Simmons with his wife,
Mountain Girl.
with his IBS, and
Marlon Wayans.
Marlon
with his
Wayans
dirty
actually
mouth.
not making me hate him in a movie. Yeah. Marlon Wayans was the one who I had the misfortune of seeing in Dungeons and Dragons, is he not?
Yeah.
Or was that Sean?
Nope, that was Marlon.
Yeah.
That's a terrible movie.
Marlon Wayans is usually the movie killer. So, the fact that Tom Hanks brought me past Marlon Wayans, it brought me back. And since then, I've actually enjoyed even his most pandering roles. I enjoyed Da Vinci Code.
Did you enjoy the sequel?
I haven't seen it yet. I own it. I haven't watched it.
You can put that one to the side.
I'm interested enough that I'll probably watch Larry Crown at some point.
Okay, that is devotion.
You
did direct it.
But I'm gonna avoid big through.
You're gonna avoid all the movies he was good in. You can, did you see Green Mile?
No.
Did you see Saving Private Ryan?
No.
My God, man. Philadelphia?
No.
My God, man.
I saw Castaway.
Yeah. Jeez. All right.
Didn't hate him.
You may end up getting around to watching some of these movies thanks to me, so I'm going to tell you right now.
See, let me explain it to you. He's been cast away, and he's cast away.
I get it.
On an island.
I see.
It works two ways.
Yeah.
Let me go over it again.
Genius.
It's like he's been cast away.
Yeah.
And he's a castaway.
Ooh.
On an island.
I see what you're saying. I like the cut of your jib.
Is that a sailing joke?
Yes, it is. I actually had to look that up once. What does that mean? It is. I think it's a nautical term. Or at least a jib is.
Have you seen the previews for the new Ron Howard adaptation of the Nathaniel Philbrick nonfiction book, In the Heart of the Sea?
I have not.
It's interesting because it's the story that In the Heart of the Sea is basically the true story that Moby Dick was written after. It was based on the wreck of a whaling ship called... It escapes me at this point, but go see the movie. You're gonna know about it.
Okay.
But
is there jib humor in it? Because that's what I go.
It's not really humor at all. It's
well,
a lot of tragedy, but it was a really fascinating nonfiction book. As for a lot of people who criticize Moby Dick for having so much unnecessary stuff about whaling, it made it interesting.
I see.
We were talking about another movie, though.
No, I forgot what we were talking about. Oh, well, so that was March 2004. Eternal Sunshine's Spotless Mind also came out that month. It was a good month.
I liked it.
I loved it. And real quick, according to Flick Charts, Intermission is the 6,458th greatest film of all time. Right above it, at 6,457, is a movie called Sweetie, which is Jane Campion's, female, of course, her name's Jane, female director. I just want to emphasize she's a female director of The Piano. Okay. This was her first movie. It's Australian. It's Sweetie. Haven't seen it. The movie right below it at 6,459, is Diary of the Dead, which George Romero zombie movie, which is really bad.
Was that straight to video?
No, that actually made its way into a few theaters. It was right after Land of the Dead. It was not very good. It was kind of like a zombie movie, but it had the first person.
I'd put this well below 6,000. I'd put not in a bad way, in a good way. I'd move it up the chart.
Yeah. Well,
I'd put this in the. I mean, for me, it's going to make it into at least probably my top 300 or 400.
Hey, it's number 499 on my list, man. Not my flick chart list, but the list we're counting down.
Yeah.
All right, so you, as a whole, you enjoyed the film.
I did. I very much enjoyed it. I liked its tone. I liked that it wasn't so fatal for, bad things were happening, but it didn't...
It was essentially one death, but the guy who dies kind of had it coming.
Yeah, you don't really end up disappointed by anything that happens in the movie. I think everything is... It's one of those movies that you can just really appreciate for the fact that it's putting everything into perspective for you.
All right. Well said. All right, I'm going to take one last sip of this cold-ass brown sauce.
I finished mine. I pounded it.
Well, mine's cold now, and it's coffee and brown sauce. So I'm going to take...
I think you overdid it.
Okay, here we go. No. No, done. All right, that should wrap it up for this week. Opening theme provided by Austin Graham. To hear more, you can find him on Facebook, YouTube, and SoundCloud. Just enter the name Austin Oz Graham. That's Austin like the city, Oz like the wizard, Graham like the cracker. Special shout out to Engineer Travis, without whom I would be crying tears of frustration putting this silly...
Hopefully he can cut out all of my coughs and hacks and...
We're going to bring this down to a tight hour, so some stuff is going to have to get cut.
Get all the lung butter out.
Like what we're talking about right now is probably going to have to get cut out. It's all good, though. So thank you, Travis. I leave you with Colin Farrell's rousing rendition of I Fought the Law. So until next time, you baldy fucks, I bid you adieu.
In the hot sun, I fought the Lord and the law won. I fought the Lord and the law won. I needed money cause I had none. I fought the Lord and the law won. I fought the Lord and the law won. I left my baby and it feels so bad. I guess my race is run. She's the best girl that I ever had. I fought the Lord and the law won. I fought the Lord and people with a 6-gun. I fought the Lord and the law won. I fought the Lord and the law won. I lost me girl and I lost me fun. I fought the Lord and the law won. I fought the Lord and the law won. I left my baby and it feels so bad. I guess my race is run. She's the best girl that I ever had. I fought the Lord and the law won. I fought the Lord and the